Hello and welcome to another episode of my Not Your Average Bible Studies. My name is Allie with Amory Speaks, and today is session number 20, I believe, and it is Palm Sunday, April 13th, 2025. I've been listening to a lot of controversial and questioning topics today as to why today is not Easter, as we've had our full moon for the month already, and so it would seem that today should have been Easter. The conspiracy theorist within me will say, oh, immediately they've done this on purpose. They don't want good energies. There's too much accumulation of good alignments to truth and positivity that they have had to really press down on things, on all their buttons at this time of year to make sure things don't blossom and bloom too quickly, because they really are so quick and pretty much out of quote unquote the negatives, their control. And so yeah, I'm not surprised. And if that is, I'm sure they have excuses and reasoning ways and all these technicalities as to what it cannot be and is next week, in fact. But same with the reasons as to why January is the beginning of the year, I'm sure. It's along those same running lines, right? Or the same distortive wrinkles. But what are waves, right? So anyways, today is whatever it is, and it still is of the season and of the times and of Lent and the Great Awakening and the Great Rebirth and these pivotal closure times as to when we know cycles are shifting, the preparations beforehand, and the ultimate culmination of the great pivot points. You know, they are eternal and ever happening and cyclic in themselves as the seasons are. So, we can take what we want from that and any day of the week, basically, and learn goodness and learn to hearken into our own worlds in our own good ways to do our own good work. No matter who says what, right? Anyway, so without further ado, today we're going to be getting into chapter 11, the very start. If you are new here, just a quick disclaimer, I am not of traditional background, and this is not a traditional reading in any sense. I am a mere seeker of truth who has come around to reading the New Testament almost 40 years into life now. So I admit I'm new, I'm wet behind the ears, I don't have a lot of the traditional standing, foundational, fundamental sort of background knowledge that comes into play with people a lot of times when they go to read the Bibles, I guess. Coming at it from a different perspective. Somebody from a more of a metaphysical, esoteric background. I'm not a stranger to theology or to metaphysics or esoteric or occult teachings or anything like that. And in fact, I have quite a wide variety of exposure points, different cultures and traditions beforehand and bringing to the table as I come to this reading. And so I think that's why I call it Not Your Average, and I think it brings something new to the table and in itself is a bit unique, as I am unique. Every way we do anything is unique, and even coming to things from a traditional standpoint, you'll bring your own thumbprint to it, of course. But here, I know consciously that I lack that traditional fundamental stance that might come right to the forefront of people's minds who do come from that background and might be wondering if I'm missing something or I don't know these things or whatever. And the case is probably yes, I don't, and I am. If you ever feel, as listening, like you would love to drop some knowledge on me, I would fully appreciate that. I'm never offensive or defensive in that way, as long as it's not an aggressive standpoint, that things are not thrust upon me in a belittling or demeaning way, but free to share as a student in class and as a student of life eternally. All of us are, no matter what grade, quote unquote grade we're in, right? Or where we think we're at. We're all mere students, and and friends in this, right? Like-mindedness. And so, yeah, if you have any pivotal points or background that you'd love to share, or you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. So please send me emails or leave comments even if you'd like everyone to see them. My email's always in the description. Whether you find me on BitChute or YouTube, it's there. So feel free to send me anything like that separately, if you feel called to do so, of course. With that acknowledgement out there, if you're not new and you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming on my Sacred Sundays with me here along for the ride of exploration to see what pops up and listen to my questions and my own observations. I appreciate so much everyone who does listen to these and who does offer feedback. I love to always hear how my own interpretations are taken as well. Teach learning, right? That's what we're here for. So, as I have kind of given enough of a preamble, let's get down to what we really come here for, right? And read the scriptures and see where they take us today. So, as I said before, this is session 20, and we're starting off in chapter 11 of Matthew. Oh, and I am reading a Gideon's Pocket version, King James. 1973. Full of old-timey language, and I love it. So 11. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. I love this because I feel like he says, like, I am speaking the truth. These things have all truly happened. And whoever accepts this as true and who believes in the truth and who is not offended by it, right? And this is the thing that it always makes me think of, and that it's like a wire walk back and forth. It always brings back energetic intention as well to me, and how everything is this, culmination, manifestation of before. The thought world, spirit, these things come before our actions. They come before our speech. And the response that we feel when we're presented with uncomfortable truths, when we see truths that are hard to look at, that if we're immediately taken onto the offensive and we want to attack and just out of a place of fear or worry, it's that in itself shows that you're not ready for the truth. But when we hear that, and there's a space of curiosity, there's a space of mystery, there's a wondering of how, an acceptance to knowledge, to seeing and believing what you see, there's that in itself, I feel, is where the non-offense comes into. That should not be offended by me. It's not, we're not amazed by things like that. It's not that there's no mystery to it. There's not a confoundedness to it, or a humble confusion even. Because we need to bow down to that which is greater than the self, honestly. You need to know that the human's mind, the man's mind, is not of capacity of the whole of ultimate creation, of infinite intelligence. We are a fractal bit of it, and our own divine expression of it. And I think we can never be offended by things fully. We can't be hateful or on guard against something as in offended, right? By anything, if we know all things here of God. We can be mindful, we can be skeptical and weary, we can be on point and on, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of a better word that's a more conscientious standpoint than to say to be putting yourself on guard, because when we say we're on guard, it's almost you get on that stance of ready to attack. But instead it's more of to be more aware, to be ready to respond, but not in an action, in a negative, cutthroat fight or flight kind of demands extreme action, but in a gracious movement that can be synchronistically coordinated, with betterment, with goodness, with the overall highest, that is the ultimate runner of all things. To have the ultimate faith, to know that all things happen for a reason. How do you get on guard or offended or hateful against another? Or, even if they're lying, even if it's something they're bringing that seems like a lie to you, you would be more honestly wanting to sort it out for true honesty, sense, and sake, than to squash it and to not understand it, because then it's squashed and gone and you didn't understand it. The irking in the sense of, oh, what was it for real? Where did that come from? How will it ever come? The uncertainty of those things left unsaid to someone who honors truth and is seeking the truth. I think that would be too much in itself, wouldn't it? I feel that way in myself, at least. So yeah. Anyways, off on a little bit of a tangent there. I really love the sort of scene that gets depicted here as well. The questioning disciples of John coming to Jesus, and he answers them so graciously, and turns back. And the use of teaching moments to others is these live action sort of role models of working and of explanations into his parables, into his examples. I just absolutely enjoy it. I love that kind of scene and depiction, and we get into it here as 7 goes on. As they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, what went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yeah, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. And so he so humbly asks everyone to recognize, to pay homage, to own and accept, like I talked so much before in my other ways, spaces and channels, about the work of ancestors and needing to be in the path of ascension in itself, being that like a pier out from the sand and surf out into the ocean. All the planks and the pillars have to come before, and they hold steady the placement of the next to come after. And we have to pay homage. We have to take care of and honor, look back at and remember, and give strength back to those that come before us. We have to. It's been lost, and to see it's lost even in Jesus' time is almost a comforting sense to me, is to not blame the stupidity of today's man alone, to be overlooking of that, to be careless of it. And I say that in myself. I have been many a times. I work to seek to honor it more lively, to be consciously aware of it, not to say that I am perfect. But perhaps in Jesus's sense and in his consciousness, his birthright was to be perfect in that sense, right? To own that 24/7 and to be a guiding light in that sense. Because like he says, these expectations of what John is, what any mystic is, and I talked a bit about this at the start of this New Testament, and in some different varieties of talking about other pivotal figures of the mystic in the woods. The sort of wizard or druid, that has been in so many different cultures depicted. The monks in all of these sacred, segregated spaces that have this really alternate, wild-esque, untainted type of knowledge and wisdom from them. Usually granted and ordained from, spirit, nature, things that are greater than just man, in our represented in so many different cultures, but John the Baptist is definitely one of those figureheads. And I really love to see how he says, what did you go out in the wilderness to see? Some kind of magic, some kind of spook, a ghost, a figment? Did you go to see some kind of well-to-do person? What did you expect to find out there in him? And you have gotten what you expected. Anyways, I think too, and he says this so many times that I'll just poke out again, because it aligns so much to today's world and sort of the culture of the influencers in the spiritual world and the conscious age community and all these sort of out there do-gooders in the world. And they're all about money, and they all have this great Hollywood-esque perfect, picture perfect kind of presentation to themselves, no flaws and all these things. And it's like, well, our spiritual leaders are good people. They're not clothed in, in Prada. They're not wearing Balenciaga or shopping at any of these places. They're not supporting Adidas or any Apple products. They don't have big shiny homes, okay? The fact that they do in themselves speaks for itself. In my case, in my own perceptions, at least, looking at what I see out there today in these worlds I'm speaking on. But anyways, back to what Jesus is speaking on in his days and age. 11. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and all the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. And again, I think these are references. I noticed this name over and over again, some kind of prophet, and I was writing in my journal, and I won't get too carried away into this right this second, because I don't have any answers, just ponderings. But the way in which, there's already all of these sort of prophecies accounted out there, that they're sort of meeting these check marks for in a very conscious way to play them out. It's always gets me questioning and wondering. I'm just looking at my own notes, because I was writing something yesterday about, instead of using the word prophecy, what prophecy to me in these day and age, in a more, even in a scientific way, because prophecy, I think sometimes, especially, maybe it's just my own interpretations and translations, it gets very wrapped up in magic and mystical things, and in something that has no firm standing for some reason. It's like, and again, it could be just a major point of sort of the mind control and plagiarism within the plastering propaganda of the Matrix, right? Try to say that 3 times fast, that tongue twister there. Could all be due to that anyways, that I have these sort of things around prophecy. But it seems to me that it comes from a place of unbased and personally biased sort of presentations of wishing well, dreaming of, a projection of certain wantings of happenings to be called into prophecies, right? And things that are written down because they want them to happen. And that's very sketchy to me. Who's the they, and why do they want these things to happen? But again, a building out of dreams and these manifestations of insights that come from above, from before and after in imagination space, the intention is different to me, and so I feel they come from a different place, because they're a freeing sense, not a restricting, enslaving sense. But again, this more positively aligned idea of having prophecy, right? I see it as a fulfillment of certain steps in a buildingness of consciousness. Now, sequential growth must happen through certain cyclitic steps. There is a truth in the way that things must grow. And is that what by prophecy they mean? Do they prophesize through a great knowing of gnosis, of the great counting, and of what must happen and how things do happen, the flow and space of great knowing? But again, we have to think of who's the prophecy and were they paid or not, are they sponsored or not? And I don't know these people. These are not tangible knowing, they speak of like they would have back then perhaps, and perhaps back then they did and they do, and this is where it comes from, and so that is why they claim these names so much and honor back to them. But I don't really, and I don't think any of us really do. And unless you're in a direct vicinity to test the waters, and unless you have a formidable reoccurring exchanges and exposure to people, you can't really claim and know intentions. You don't have the space and the timing to test it yet. And so all you can do is cast judgment based on your own sort of glance on a cover of a book, and that's very unfair. And especially, like I said so many times, we have very distorted vessels looking out here. But to think about that other version of prophecy and to say that perhaps the prophecy in itself is talking about this very esoteric understanding of sequential growth and building. And that in itself is I look back at a scene, knowledge these days, and where perhaps they say a lot of these culminations of John the Baptist came from, and a lot of the before knowledge of even the Druids or even pagan. I don't know who and where it comes from, but they're all around, and they're not all tradition, right? And so perhaps that's where he's speaking from, and then yes, I can understand why he would say verily, and it's so true, and this is, why they would be quoting and bringing back these references to these specific prophecies and prophets. And yeah, he who hath ears to hear, let him hear. For if you know the truth rings true. It's undeniable. All ages and times, the song and dance is always the same. But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets, and calling unto their fellows, and saying, We have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. Now, this is, I love it, it gives us a gauge of the social. It's a test of the temperature of the world at the time, and of John the Baptist's time, and of before Jesus, and of what is ringing true to what Jesus claims to be bringing as the new age and the new dawn and the new way, to the old ways. It's so important. It's such it's such a rabbit hole to me about how, it seems so ancient to us now, and yet they are speaking of their ancient times. It's and again, it's they call to the end. They say the end is near. It's always these apocalyptic end of times kind of days that people are speaking of and being called to, and yet again, it's the metaphor can be easily your own end of days, your death. It's always, each one of us faces it. Doesn't have to be this grand culmination of a whole world's external version of it happening at once. It happens at once for you, one time. And shouldn't that be good enough? So why don't we get ready for it? Why don't we love and live alive right now, fully enjoying what we have at our fingertips, to be light in action, to be love in action, right? To speak our truths and to live in truth, and to not be tied down and weighed down by all of these false dead words and shackles and bonds that are tying people into lamenting over, worlds that are before them, aren't for them now, in the here and now. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He hath the devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Behold, a man gluttonous, and a winebibber, and a friend of publicans and sinners. But wisdom is justified of her children. I just want to talk about hypocrites and about fulfillment of false prophecies and negative self-fulfilling prophecies, really, and why do we as in a culmination of population of man, it's cast blame and scapegoat and always looking for an external figment to point a finger at, when in fact, when you point one, four are pointing back at you. But no one wants to really fully recognize and live and understand in that. But anyways, it's a hard thing to do, right? And I'm saying to myself, it's very hard to do. Then began he to upbraid the cities wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not. Woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida? I don't even know how to say that. I don't like when they break these up into, the grammatical breaking up of how it's spelled, because I can't. Anyways, it's so distracting, and then I fear that I sound moronic. It's fine. I'm leaving it. For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and in Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable in Tyre and Sidon than at the day of judgment than for you. And for Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shalt be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable in the land of Sodom than in the day of judgment than for thee. Now, who is he really talking to? And who is he really chastising and castrating or attempting to here? These are questions in my own sense. Again, I don't have really the answers to these because I'm not from a traditional background. I haven't heard the story 100,000 times and know about who all the players in society are back then. And so, I sort of just ask these questions as I read through these. But also as a bystander and as a witness to this, it seems to me to say that John the Baptist, who's come before me, who did a bunch of great work similar to what I'm doing right now, was kicked out of all these cities, and you all hate him and chose not to go with his works and continue to be doing, living the vile ways that you're living. If you had, you'd still be there, right? And the fact that you have not, even after these other cities, that Sodom and Gomorrah, all these other Tyre and Sidon, or I don't know. I know the reference of Sodom and Gomorrah, sort of, but I don't know the others exactly. But it's saying like they were really, really bad, They fell nastily. Look at the disgusting garbage and trash that became of their societies, what they're known for. What they let happen, which you allow is what you're known for, better than what you choose to stand against, really, sometimes. Especially when things get taken into extremes like that. I think Jesus is really trying to point those kinds of things out, So yeah, excuse my sort of crappily read chapter here, with the names and explanations and the present pronunciation and all of that. But yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I think I might just read and close out. This might be a little over half an hour, but I think I might read the rest of 11 here today. Extra long Palm Sunday. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seems good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomever so the Son will reveal him. A lot of times I feel these words here, Jesus is comforting himself and supporting himself in his great faith of the Father, and in knowing, yes, that all things the Father chooses to do make sense to him, and remembering his great tie into knowing and trusting that there is the great Father and the great source of all, rooted in every action. And so that even though he sees these things right before his eyes that befundle him so much, that are so counterintuitive to what he would ever think the great Father would want or do or allow, that he says, yes, I know, I know you are still here at work. I know in faith that these are of your doings, even though in my own sight and mind, I can't comprehend and I cannot even understand the despotic degradation that's mutated here and been allowed to, and is really just run rampant, right? That he's sort of said through all these cities and all the things that if they've cast John aside and cast all the culmination of all the refusal of doing the good work, you know, I really feel like he's saying that acknowledging that everyone is babies, everyone is like not consciously aware enough to really grasp the importance of service to others, and you know, how we are a divine reflection of each other here, and in that that reflection is the reflection of God as well, the Father, and that in knowing that and in seeing that, that's the truth, the true connection, and you know, creating that space is why he says no man gets to the Father not through the Son, not without through me, because we recognize that is how we all are that. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I love this because it's like he's, you know, in the reminder of the truth and in the good work and in the fractalization of all that, he tells all of his disciples and all of those who feel that burden, you know, to come to him and that he will soothe you by the knowing, by the Father. That one connectivity, it really does. I have been in hard places. I have seen hard things, and that has always brought a comfort to me. And before I ever even read these words, before I even understood what that even meant, I was never taught that. You know, I was never read these words as a child and taught to seek comfort in Jesus or anything like that. In fact, my father scoffed at that. I still couldn't even probably, you know, if he ever even stumbled upon this somehow, oh my goodness. You know, the cynical critiques that I would receive, and the absolute baffledness of how to be brainwashed into something like that would be, you know, it's beyond the capacity, unfortunately. But it's the stigmas and it's the fear, really, that locks people in the cages of being able to even step out of it so that they can see the goodness of it. To see that when you step into, even if it was, they want to see it as a cage, right? It's really not. It's a bird's nest. It never had a door on it. It's wide open to the sky. You have gone and built your nest so far around you and created a door on it. You know, God never intended that. Jesus never intended this. The teachings do not intend that whatsoever. They're created to be a place of rest to go and nest into, not to trap you, not to force containment ever. But people, oh, it's a forced container. Oh, don't get in there. You'll be stuck in there, you know. But they don't want to let themselves fly free, in fact, because no, it's not a cage. I'm not caged in this. I fly freely and I rest in it. And I do take my yoke upon take the yoke upon me and feel a comfort in it. Not in a slavedom, not in, you know, it's the opposite of that. You know, this is where it's tricky, and it's all a mirrored reflection. And if you're not in the know, you don't get it. And you can be easily fooled and misled. This is, but that's the walk of life. That's the chosen path. We have a freedom of choice. You have to make the choice for yourself. And it's not a one-time choice either. That's the greatest gift of all. It's every moment, every day. And then when you feel overwhelmed by it, if you feel outcasted or too tired or whatever, you come back to the works, these scriptures, and look, I myself find them now, and I am invigorated by them. It's such a refueling. It's amazing. I'm going to read these again. I love these last lines in 11 here, and I'm going to read them 28 again, starting and read through, and then we'll close it out. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, for I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I just love that, because it's just like I spoke about already. Things can seem so overwhelming, things can seem so hard, but by the grace of God, when we are reconnected to that deep cord that connects us to all, there's this totally sustained fulfillment. It's a thirst that's unquenchable. It's a paradox in itself, really. And that's why I love, again, it's to use these words that can be so trapping, that can seem almost like a slave master speaking down to slaves, and to say, no, it's not, and yeah, I'm going to use your words, but I'm flipping it around and I'm finding the true positivity in it, because you cannot serve two masters at once. So yeah, I can use your lingo and your terms. I can use the verbiage, the words that you claim to have, so much power within in your spell casting. But guess what? There's no power. Your power is not the power. The words are not the power. It's the grace of God. It's the true connection, the intention of the spoken frequency of the knowing that is the power. You could say whatever words spoken out that you should so choose when they come from that great space of knowing and truth. And they are the right words. They seal the deal. They cannot be empowering in the negative. They do not empower that evil, archonic, satanic, inverted version of slave master. And so I think, again, a lot of these parables where Jesus teaches and chooses to teach at the level, at eye height, to us humans, to society at the time, and to use this slave master, the yoke, in an example and metaphor to one, to work the fields without turning away, to be fulfilled in your work without needing something outside of you to come and, it's not in a belittling sense to say that, it's a humbling and place of communion, I believe and I see and I choose to see. And I think that's the power of choice. It's all about it. What you choose to see is what it is. And I think I'll end with, I started with my Sacred Sunday today with Walter Russell, and I'm going to end my prayer here by saying the day is of my choosing. And I chose that today, this Sunday, Palm Sunday. Easter Sunday could be the real Easter, should be, maybe. In praise of choosing the day. And I put palms behind it in this image that I made today in respect of the great notion that Jesus, if he was and did, he chose that life and walk. He chose that death and example, full on and knowing what was coming, because we all do die one day. And to choose a good death is the best choice of all. It honors the Father in the highest way, because it shows with an unwavering bravery and courage the fullness with which you embrace the gift, the fleeting gift of life, the fiery aliveness, the flash of electric light that you are the fractalization, the manifestation in action, and that you work, that you find it valuable and worthy, and that the whole bit of it, no matter how short or long it is, that you fully embrace it, that you fully appreciate it, because you did take every chance you could. You did live your life to the fullest at each moment. You did appreciate every breath that you take. That's why your day is of the choosing. That's how it means to be and choose your life and to live in that each day and each moment. And that's the power of choice, and that's what was behind my thinking when I made that quote this morning, and to choose to end here today with these messages and reminders for anyone who chooses to listen, and for myself most of all. And now I'm reminded of Dylan Thomas' poem, I will not go quietly into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. And to me, that always meant, don't give up to the lies, to the shadows, to the darkness within. Do that hard work. Stand up against as much as you can to keep your light bright, to rage against the dying of the light. Because at the end of the day, when we can each step into and understand that the light we have, it is slowly going out, we should rage against that. Not in an angry way, and not in a sense of it's not enough time or we need more. No, in vigor, in an abundance of amplified energies that invigorate us in an adventurous sense, that call us to action in a vibrancy that is so amplified and alive that raging brings to us, But anyways, I think I'll leave it there. It's been long enough today, almost 45 minutes. Thank you so much for sitting with me on a beautiful Sacred Sunday in this last stretch of Lent. I hope I'll see you next Sunday. It will be an interesting one, I'm sure. Hope you have a wonderful week. In the meantime, if you're ever looking to hear more from me, you can always find more on my channels, at YouTube or BitChute, or over on amariespeaks.com, where there's a plethora of free tips and tools. No trips, but you could take a trip. You can go on a full trip there for sure, for free, always. amariespeaks.com, or find me on Telegram if you use that platform, where I share daily introspective spirituality and happiness memes and things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can find me over there. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for your beautiful contribution to our collective. We certainly would not be the same without you. And thanks again for witnessing mine. I'll catch you next time.